I came across a video that's supposed to debunk my lack of belief. Let's check it out. 1 minute? To change my entire understanding of the universe? I'll bet he has a really convincing argument. Let's see what evidence they have to prove me wrong. Logic? Okay, well, logic's good, but I'm assuming now no evidence? What do you have? Wordplay? Cosmological arguments? Or the good old, you can't prove there isn't one? Done. Well, to be a bit nitpicky, I don't hate the word God. I prefer to use terms like anthropomorphic intelligent creator being myself because that's more descriptive than God, but hate the word? No, you can still use that around me in standard conversations. Let's see what this argument is.
If atheism is true, then everything is ultimately the direct result of purely random, uncoordinated, and undependable accidents.
Okay, wow, first off, that voice is almost as monotone and robotic as mine. Now, right off the bat, you're wrong about everything being random and uncoordinated. Everything, at least according to Newtonian physics, is both dependable and coordinated. Theoretically, the cause and effects of everything above the quantum level can be traced back to the earliest moments of the universe. The problem is, there are so many particles in the universe, and in some way, everyone is interacting with every other one, that we are unable to predict, with much accuracy, how they'll behave. We call some things random, like dice throws or mutations, because there are so many factors we can't predict the outcomes, even if those outcomes are the result of cause and effect. But, just because we're unable to work them out, doesn't mean there were no factors in determining them.
Note that everything includes our conclusions.
Again, you're incorrect. We evolved. If something is detrimental to a species' ability to survive, it's bred out through natural selection. Being unable to form non-random conclusions would be very detrimental to any species that has to make decisions to survive. The fact is, the ability to draw conclusions is a survival tool. Our ancestors, for whatever reason, came down from the trees. We were not the best equipped to survive on the plains, and had to develop tools to endure. Tool use requires being able to come to correct conclusions. If I hit a rock with another rock this way, it'll make an edge that's good for cutting. If I attach this stone and stick together, it'll make something to help me bring down prey. If I put up a barrier, it'll keep predators out. Being able to reach proper conclusions aided in our survival, and natural selection helped weed out those who could not draw such conclusions.
If our conclusions are ultimately the direct result of purely random, uncoordinated, and undependable accidents, then our conclusions are entirely random and undependable.
No. As I stated, the ability to draw conclusions was selected for by evolution in humans. Those that could not draw non-random conclusions about the world that affected them had a much lower chance to survive. This doesn't mean that everything we concluded was correct, just the things at the time that were important to survival. Geocentrism versus heliocentrism, or the shape of the Earth, would not matter to our ancestors, whose only concern was getting enough food and not becoming something else's dinner. More introspective conclusions about the world would only come about when we had time to study such things, but the ability to reach conclusions had, by this time, become part of our mental toolbox.
No atheist believes that his own conclusions are random and undependable.
Because they're neither random nor undependable. Now, as I said, our conclusions are not always correct. Okay guys, last year we sacrificed a virgin and the crops grew really well. Obviously, the two are connected. Only one thing to do. Start the annual sacrifices. How do we know those were connected? It could have just been a coincidence. Interesting. So, you want the village to starve? Or perhaps you should be the next sacrifice. Find a virgin. Got it. But that was a conclusion based on cause and effect. Even if the logic wasn't sound, it was not a random or undependable conclusion, it was just incorrect. That's why people have reached many different conclusions about, say, religion. They can't all be correct, and most likely none are. We can reach non-random conclusions that are incorrect if our logic is faulty. That's why we need to draw on evidence and testability if we want conclusions we come to be accurate.
So no atheist really believes in atheism.
Even if your argument was correct, atheists would still think they're right about the non-existence of God, just like every believer in every faith thinks their belief is true, even though mathematically the majority must be wrong. I'm willing to admit my mistake and change my mind if proper evidence is presented to me, but so far, nothing has been.
What we have seen here is that if atheism is true, there is no possibility of knowledge. However, knowledge is possible. Therefore, atheism is certainly not true.
No, knowledge is possible without a divine being to give it to us. We evolved an ability to draw conclusions, something that has aided us in our quest for knowledge. It didn't have to be imparted on us. And honestly, our views on the world are sometimes incorrect. Sometimes we're presented with evidence that goes against our common understanding of how things operate. For example, we evolved in a state where Newtonian physics was how we interacted with the world. Quantum mechanics didn't affect our ancestors so much, so we didn't evolve an understanding of them, and much we've learned about the quantum state is counterintuitive to how we normally perceive the world. The evidence collected shows that sometimes our preconceived ideas about certain phenomena has been wrong. Our ability to come to conclusions is tied to our survival. Those who couldn't reason properly were weeded out of the gene pool rather quickly. The logic humans use may be faulty and come to the wrong conclusions, but the conclusions we reach are structured and definitely not random.